No, it's
They
still
got
there.
one in Rogers City and Gaylord.
Oh, okay.
That's it. Nothing on the side of the state.
Interesting. Well, that could be
Be another one.
that could be fun. Did you see that right on the bike trail?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I have to build a smoker into the hill.
Yeah,
and then
make sure the fan blows towards the.
like they do Burger King.
Yeah, exactly.
Pump it down.
Yeah. The way you do it. Yeah, to do an annual. Oh. Yeah, Brian was going on with it. What Brian say? He told me the story.
All right, it's 5 o'clock. I call this work session to order. First up, discussion items, Water Dog Park. You want to say anything?
Oh, I guess my name is there. There's been some discussion with Mr. Crooks sitting behind me, Mayor Salter and Brian Armstrong. Now that the Lions are no longer an official organization in the community, whether or not council might want to consider renaming the park. And Steve has mentioned, Mr. Crooks, has mentioned maybe taking over the maintenance. Just to kind of point out that I gave you a little bit of history on the Lions Club. Initially, they donated $8,000 in 1986. I think the project was $36,000. We also got an $800 grant from somebody else, and I think $10,000 from the state of Michigan. Prior to that, it was a dump. For some of you that might have been here longer than I have, will remember that used to be a dump, and the city decided let's turn it into a park. Initially, as the city was prepping the grant, it was the White Lake waterfront dock and boat launch, which is a lot more lengthy than Lions Club. But at some point, there was some sort of connection between the city and the Lions, and they said, hey, we'll donate. Could you name it Lions Park? What Steve may be thinking about is Wally Weesey's former mayor, many of you know Wally, also had the nursery. And a lot of projects around town, Wally just kind of went around and did on his own. You know, so I know he did a lot of landscape and a lot of work down there. If you remember the old Shell logo with the flowers, Wally used to do that. I think they actually paid him for that, but they paid him to put it in, but he was there weekly doing the weeding and everything. So that might be where the impression that the Lions Club was doing a maintenance agreement, but it's pretty much been all on the city. So it's up for discussion. My thought, which I just mentioned to Mr. Crooks, is whether or not we go more like what we did at Goodrich Park. Howmet donated a sizable portion of the splash pad and asked that we name it after them, so it's officially the Howmet Splash Pad in Goodrich Park. We didn't rename Goodrich Park after them. With the Playhouse, it used to be the Howmet Playhouse when we were doing the renovations and expansion. We approached Howmet, and they said they would contribute, but they don't necessarily need their name attached to the building, which probably would have had 4 different names by now. But we did have the naming rights available. What the fundraising committee said was anybody who donates $1 million, we can name it after them. And we had a father and son who donated about $850,000. We approached them and said, we think that's close enough. And they said, no, we don't want it named after us. Very generous people that are not looking for publicity or for the accolades that kind of donation certainly qualified for. So it's up for discussion how we want to approach this. I think Steve has used that launch and dock for 1 year, 2 years now? 1 year. 1 year. He has done some maintenance down there to make it a little bit better for his customers and for the city in general. So we certainly appreciate that help. And I know that Brian Armstrong and Steve will continue to work on, some maintenance. Steve mentioned some needed repairs to Brian, so we'll address those as soon as we can. So it'll be a good partnership. But what level of recognition does council want to provide?
All right, any discussion?
There you go.
Jeff?
I don't have an issue with renaming it. I mean, Lions, I mean, they started it, but they're no longer, like you said, an organization within the community. It's a sad state of affairs nowadays, but if Mr. Crooks is willing to take over maintenance and make improvements down there, I think that would be a pretty small gesture on our part.
Alderman Brown?
See if he can find the beaver down there. You seen him yet?
Oh, yeah. My employees have, I have not.
He's big.
Oh, yeah. That's what I heard.
I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on it. I mean, whatever the rest of the council is up for it would be fine with me. I'm not against it in any way.
Sounds like a win-win proposition to me. I don't see any downside.
Well, I guess I'll have to be different. Just my own personal opinion, I have never been in favor of all this renaming. We're basically trying to change history. I guess if you look at Muskegon, the L.C. Walker Arena, I'm sorry, the L.C. Walker Arena is still the L.C. Walker Arena. No matter who's got the money to put into it, that's who developed it. And I mean, if somebody came along and offered to repave Mears Avenue, but they wanted to change the name to, Salter Drive.
I think that would be a good deal.
Would
That's a lot of money.
we, could we do that? I mean, you're talking about somebody changing the name from somebody that was one of the founding people of the community. And I just don't, I would have no problem. I know Mr. Crooks has, the main interest is in the dock area over there. And if they wanted to make improvements on that, to make it more friendly for their customers and for anybody else that wanted to use it, and calling that, in fact, I think, Scott, in your overlay here, that was an option, the water dog dock and launch at Lions Park. I wouldn't have any problem with that at all, but actually rename the park, I wouldn't be in favor of it. I guess, looking ahead and keep in mind, I love what Water Dog has done down there. I love the building. I think they got a good business going, but who's to say in a couple of years if somebody comes along and offers Steve a couple $1 million to buy that building, he might sell it and they change the name and now you got a Water Dog Park that there's no water dog.
Well, that'll be Cabela's Park or
So that's where I stand on it. I would rather not. I'm all in favor of the improvements and like I say, that they want to dock that water dog dock at Lions Park, fine, but I wouldn't want to change the name.
Steve?
I'm gonna agree with Councilman Connell. I don't think the name should be changed just on a whim like that. I mean, you also have the White River Trail there. I'm just kind of the opinion that maybe people will see that it's Water Dog Outfitters Park and think that it's not public anymore. And I don't want anything to convince anybody or to make anybody feel like they're not welcome at that park, because it's gotta remain all public, including the launch. And I appreciate what Steve has done there too. And that launch is nice, and I wouldn't have a problem with, I believe it's Scott's suggestion of naming the dock as Water Dog Outfitters Dock and Launch. But it also has to be made specifically clear that it's still public and it's not just for the use by Water Dog. And I think we have some plans to improve that White River Trail again soon, don't we? Isn't that part of our Parks and Recreation plan?
Yep, it's out there a couple of years.
And I just soon, the Lions Park makes it sound more public to me. I mean, if all of a sudden all the Svensons are gone, are we gonna say, okay, somebody's gonna maintain Svensson Park, so we're gonna rename it Sickinga Park or something like that, you know? I'm agreeing with Councilman Connell on this, so. That's all I have to say on it. Oh, also, that wasn't all I have to say. As long as we're out of this area, I've had so many comments about the nice view going down the causeway over that marsh, and I just wonder if we couldn't. I know that the state is somehow involved with that depot there. They're the owners, and we lease it or something. And we can't trim any brush behind there without their permission. I think we ought to look into getting their permission to trim the brush behind that building, and also maybe some more along the shore towards that dock, because it's just been such an improvement to be able to drive across the causeway and see out over the marsh. It's beautiful. Anyway, that's my comments on it. Oh, also, one more thing. The brush between the two bridges along the river, that needs to go too. You know, as long as we're talking that area down there, I think we need to whack all that brush between the formerly railroad bridge and now and the road bridge. That needs to go. It just looks nice.
I had proposed years ago putting a boardwalk along that edge.
That would be real
Between
nice.
them, and yeah, that would be awesome.
And then just keep the stuff.
We gotta plant that money tree, so.
Yeah. But just cut the brush down isn't gonna cost that much.
Oh, yeah.
That would improve it a lot.
Makes a big difference.
I really don't have
Really no
anything
more?
else, nothing else.
Okay. Keith.
What's your ultimate plan? Where do you look? I mean, maintenance is kind of a pretty loose term. What's your vision?
I think the items that are at that park, the pergola and the dock and the walkway and whatnot, I think that's more so what I was concerned about. There's really, other than the city and using city funds to finance the repairs of that, my thought was that we could basically help with that part of it if the pergola ever needed to be re-roofed, which it sounds like it may need to soon. The dock is in need of some serious repair. And the simple fact that I have employees going down there daily, and it would be obviously to my benefit to have them walking on a safe structure every day. But more so, just the simple use that park's getting now, because I think a little bit of the exposure that we've given it, but primarily just because there are more people out kayaking, and the kayak launch that was provided by the city, so it's getting a lot of use. So the end game really wasn't for me to erase history or rename it just to benefit the business. I mean, I would even be open to, Lions Park sponsored by Water Dog Outfitters. But if we're ready and willing to put money into a city entity that, we do have use of, I was just thinking that there might be, a benefit, especially if they're, no longer in this area. So.
Does it need to be redecked or does it need to be rebuilt?
That's a good question. I haven't gone into the structural of it. I know that
last time I was on, it was pretty rough.
Yeah, say, yeah, the deck boards, I mean, we're down there pounding nails and screws probably once a week or once every other week, just with loose items. I would assume that it's going to need a whole new dock. But that's something that I'd have to look at a little more.
I don't see how any sort of upgrade would be bad. It is rough. You know, I was there last fall. It was very rough. I tried to help my wife launch her kayak. It was interesting. But I didn't know if you wanted to somehow make it able to be drive something down there to be able to launch easier with kayaks versus trying to drag them, or you know if there's anything else in your thoughts.
Well, I mean, we use a lot of carts. Obviously, you've seen the golf cart that gets transported down there, but we don't use the trail for anything like that. It wouldn't be a bad idea to offer those options. Specifically, you know, when you're parking at the park, it is kind of a long carry down to that dock area. So I've had a lot of older customers that do complain that it is quite a chore to hike down there, and they don't take the walkway. They start taking the grass and they start dragging stuff along that, and it is going to cause a little bit of wear and tear on that. So I'm always up for everything as far as just helping out and definitely improving that area. It's a nice park, and I love having access to it. I mean, that's what a huge benefit to us, but I mean it's a huge benefit to the community too.
All right. My way in is, I know those signs are gonna have to be replaced in pretty much all our parks. We need new signage. And I'm certainly not for spending city money to replace a logo of an organization that's no longer in this community. That brings up, okay, then what are we gonna call the park? That's something that I think there's room for more discussion on that, how we can acknowledge Mr. Crook's desired contribution to that, improvement of it. But as far as continuing to call it Lions Park, I have no problem with a name change, as there's no longer lions in this community. They're not actively involved in the community. We have a local business that's actively involved in the community and wants to improve that. I think we need to find some way to work with them and acknowledge that desire to improve the park and contribute to the community.
Can I add a side note?
Yes.
In my request was never a request to have the city put my name on a sign. I fully anticipated absorbing that expense and that cost. And again, if it comes down to it, I mean, we can universally, it wouldn't be a bad idea to name that park, you know, even if you named it Riverside Park or something generic to where if you have a business or quote unquote sponsorship where they could hang their logo or they could create something for that park itself. You know, I'm not intending to take over the city. I don't need that, but I do love that. I love that area that we're in, and I love the community. So I'm just trying to look at ways to improve it.
Maybe we could come up with some kind of a, I don't wanna say contest, but a contest that we're gonna name the park, come up with some ideas, and see what names the community comes up with. We can always do that, and then, like you said, we could put sponsored by and hang the sign down below. But that way we could still do the history stuff like Dick said, if somebody decides they wanna call it Sawmill Park or something else, I mean, whatever they wanna call it, somebody could come up with a name. That's my entry. But anyways, thought, while we were talking about that.
I'm not so sure how many people really knew that it was called Lions Park because the Lions Club actually donated money to it. I didn't realize that until I got this, so. I think isn't their logo on some of the signage down there? Their old logo.
There is, yeah,
Yes.
no.
But I guess that kind of went that way, and you know, I never really related also a little free library right behind the chamber that has a Lions logo that was donated by a Lions member. And I'm certainly not trying to erase their contribution to this community, but I'm trying to improve that facility for all the people of this community. And there's certainly room for discussion as to what we do with it. But as I said, that sign's gonna have to be replaced. And I certainly don't support spending tax dollars to put up another Lions Park sign.
Was the Lions, Club, was that the one that was right behind Napa there, or was that Elks, or what was that? That was the
That
building.
used to be the Elks,
Elks,
with the old, log cabin.
yeah. Did they own that property and the city bought it, or?
They did not, the city owned it,
Oh,
and they just, I don't know, it just became the Elk Lodge, they might have met there a long time ago. But it was always city owned. And I think the basement was always used for chamber storage.
It was the American Legion originally.
Okay.
That's what it was built as, was it not? It was built as the American
It was
Legion.
built as the American
Yes.
Legion.
I don't know. What's the kind of consensus where we wanna go with this?
I think it's a good option. I think we should get a price tag on what we think the improvements that need to be done to it though.
So further discussions, because right now I got 3 that said yes, 2 said no, 1 said he didn't care, and 1 didn't really say.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think it's a good idea. I think we just need to have figure out some sort of agreement and kind of move forward.
We'll have further talks with Mr. Crooks. And staff's not opposed to it, I just kind of threw that option out there.
Do we have money budgeted to fix any of this stuff anyway?
Nothing in Lions, last council meeting, I think we moved forward with applying for grants for Funnel, Goodrich, and G Park, which actually is the next 3 years worth of, the Parks and Rec Master Plan. If we hit one of those 3, I'll be pretty happy, if we hit all 3, I'll sing and dance.
What's our
Which will
liability?
actually be kinda ugly,
Can we
but.
get that, can we get that right?
What's our liability of current conditions?
The standard, from my perspective, and Will can chime in, is that if there is a known hazard that the city fails to cure in a timely fashion, then we could be held liable. But as long as we're not charging a fee, then our liability is not as great. Is that about?
That's about it, yeah, I mean, it's pretty high standard for municipality to be liable for something like that.
So at this point, we're gonna continue to mow the lawn there.
Yeah, and sorry. Brian's aware of the issues out on the deck and the docking, so we are gonna address those as soon as, weather permits. So we do, Steve mentioned, we're getting to the point where repairs are probably beyond where we should be going, and that replacement is probably in the near future.
You know how long it's been since something major has been done with that?
I'm thinking, I think that original boardwalk was with the 1986 grant. The one that we pulled off that went down, so that was 40 years old. And I would imagine the dock itself is probably just as old. So it's weathered, it's held up pretty well, but
Seen a lot of winters and a lot of ice.
it has.
It's pretty spongy getting up to it. It's kind of like floating.
Yeah.
I think it's a great tourist attraction to try to make it a better access and
Most definitely. I agree.
And whack the brush.
whack the brush, yep.
Well,
Yeah, the brush cut would be really nice behind that caboose too.
It would.
so I guess we're leaving it at further discussions.
Yeah, we'll bring something back.
Where are we at with the wall that the young gentleman came in about a couple work sessions ago?
He was going to provide more details. I think Brenda's had communications with them that probably the underpass is the best location, primarily because I think it was one of 3 that the city council actually has jurisdiction over. So I think he was going to come back with a more detailed plan.
We're waiting on him.
Yes.
Did he talk to any, private, like, the pocket park there?
Catchmark.
I knew it was something Mark, I couldn't remember.
Bells.
Yeah, Catchmark Building or anything like that, you don't know if he's talked to any.
Was that one?
Bells.
I don't, yeah, that was what he was originally thinking, but I think he thought that was under our jurisdiction. I don't, from the way we discussed it, it didn't sound like it. He was trying to zero in on one location, and he was in favor of the, down in the tunnel, so.
And quite honestly, I took a walk down there the other day, that wall, and you could use the wall too, all the way down to the end.
Right.
I mean, that's a big canvas for those guys.
I'm just a little afraid of what they're gonna put on there. That's all.
Well, but keep in mind, when we open it up and say, this is available for anyone to put on there what they want, so long as it's not offensive, that means you can do it too. And if you find it offensive, then you can cover it up.
But then people are gonna be able to put their thing over the top of somebody else's.
That's what happens.
That's what happens in those.
And that's what,
That's gonna look like a mess after a while, in my opinion.
I don't know.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Hearts in the eye of the beholder.
Yes, yes. It's, I know it's pulling you out of your comfort zone.
Well, there's other ways to express yourself. I mean, you can paint your hair purple and you can wear a nose ring, or I mean, I just don't understand why we gotta deface public property, that's my opinion. Cause that to me is what it is.
All right, at this point, public comment. Does anyone in the public want to put forth their
County
thoughts
Council,
on this?
Mr. Hubler, so Mr. Cook? Crooks. Nice to meet you.
You too.
First of all, I'd like to say that I agree with, is this on? Hello? You don't even
Ours
turn
are
them on.
not
Why,
on.
why do we have this?
Not for this meeting.
Well, you should. I wear hearing aids.
Oh,
There are a lot of other people here that are elderly and can't hear.
Go ahead and turn it on, Jerry.
Why is it on?
We actually apologize. We've been getting some really bad
Feedback.
feedback.
Check. You don't even have the system turned on.
No, we have the system turned on. That is bad with the feedback. We haven't found a happy medium without it.
Well, hello?
Yeah, up here.
Whatever. Taking too much time here. So first of all, I think that changing the name of the dock or naming the dock Water Dog Landing is a good idea, especially if he's going to help with maintenance. I think that should be changed to a floating dock at the end of the boardwalk. And here's a radical idea. Since we're looking for parking, rather than take up all the parking space, let's move that dock over by the Chamber of Commerce. We got a whole big parking lot there. It'd be right across the street from his business. It makes a lot of sense. And people coming down with kayaks could park there and use that landing. So I think that's probably what you want to do. Do what you want. Now, on this renaming the park, why is it we have to go with businesses and fraternal organizations and this guy or that guy? You have, right there at that park, a plaque naming a historic registry for the state of Michigan for this lady, Edith Munger. First female president of the Audubon Society, of the National Audubon Society. Here's that plaque, lovely photograph taken by Mr. Armstrong. And what I would like to see, my whole reason for being here with this, is I would like to see this renamed to the Edith Munger Bird Preserve and Park. I think I can make a huge case for this if you give me the time. Besides it being part of the Michigan Historic Registry, she fought to get this to stop the bounty on hawks and eagles because they were taking agricultural livestock. She fought to get land preserved instead of taking beach sand and making glass so that the birds would have some place to go and be preserved. There were on White Lake, right here, around the turn of the century, there were boats out there with punt guns. Does anyone right here know what a punt gun is? A punt gun is a huge shotgun about 10 feet long with a bore about 4 inches in diameter. They mount it in an oarlock on a boat, and when flocks of birds would come over, obviously they're going to be waterfowl, they'd fire this gun and knock 100 birds out of the sky, and then they'd take these birds, clean them up, put them in barrels, salt them, and send them off to New York City or Chicago to be used in the restaurants. A ridiculous practice, fortunately, has been stopped. So, she also was a resident of Whitehall. Now, she moved to Hart when she married the doctor, but she went to school here and graduated from Whitehall High School. So she's a local. She also worked with the Audubon Society, and she taught school, to get a message across to school-age children to respect and enjoy songbirds. That's a biggie. We have a problem in the country right now with egg eaters decimating our songbird population. By that I mean raccoons, possum, all of them getting into the nests. The biologists will tell you this. This is not something I came up with out of the blue. This is statistical fact. She's the one that created a contest for the state bird, and they had a number of selections. She preferred the chickadee. Obviously, the robin won out in an election, so that's fine. So, as the first president, female president of the Michigan Audubon Society, she really established the organization as a very important voice for birds for all the decades to come. In addition, and this is real important, since you're a man, 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 and you're a man, we have no female representation on this council. I'm stating that as, I'm making a general statement when I point that out. She was inducted into the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame in October 2010. She was also a leader of the Michigan Federation of Women's Club, active in the women's suffrage movement, and a member of the Women's League of Women Voters, besides being president of the Hart School Board. So if we want to, show that we really respect and honor women, that's a small part of it. Let's keep that in there. It's a small piece. But to say that we're going to name it Water Dog Park, and with all due respect to you, I really want to see this named Water Dog Landing. I think it'd be a great name. It suits, being in a bird marsh, the whole thing. And being across from your business, that's a plus for the town.
Right.
So, let's consider a completely different approach here. Let's consider calling it the Edith Munger Bird Preserve and Park, or something Mr. Hubler and Honorable Councilman come up with, but incorporate her name into it, because you've already got this plaque down there designating this as a historic place. It's registered with the state of Michigan as a historic place with her name and a small portion of her history and her contribution to not only the state, but the country with the National Audubon Society. I think that's probably, here's a quote by her, and I think this will apply to what we're talking about with preserving nature, preserving birds, this park. She said, "The first duty of every person is to do the finest thing by his own soul." She wrote, "Sometimes that comes through sacrifice, and sometimes it comes through refusing to be sacrificed. In either case, the soul goes marching out. I think, you know, when we start honoring people historically, we're doing it, and especially if, because she's a woman. I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep putting that in there, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. That's gonna enrich everyone's soul. It makes a huge difference. I really, really would appreciate if there'd be some serious consideration to calling it the Edith Bunger Bird Preserve, Wildlife Preserve, however you want to work it out.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
I'll certainly say that I have no opposition whatsoever to renaming that park after Edith. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank you.
But I also want you to know that every man on this council job is to represent every woman in this community.
I appreciate that. I would appreciate it that when your term was ended, there would have been a woman appointed to this council. No offense to any man sitting on this council. I don't mean any personal offense. I would have rathered a woman, any woman, had been appointed. But it is what it is now. We got to work with it. Thanks, guys.
Anyone else? Any comments from the... Yes.
If I could just make one statement on Mr. Rowe's comment about being all men here. These are elected offices. There were no women that ran for the council.
As a matter of fact, there was. Deb Hildebrand ran for the council.
But
it doesn't matter. She's a member of the council just as he is when he's on the council. So that's an invalid argument. If you read the charter, it says the next highest vote getter. So there was a woman running that could have been appointed.
Well,
Now,
and if you were at that meeting, I made that.
I know you did.
Suggestion.
I know you did, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
But I'm just saying, as far as not having any women on here, yes, there was that one instance, and yes, it did get voted down. But the people of the community elect all of us.
That's right.
And if we don't have any women running,
you did.
But
that's a specious argument to say that because she's running for mayor, that she's not running for the council. Because once the mayor is elected freely by the people and openly, he's a member of this council. He's not somebody off as a separate entity. So let's not go there. I mean, I appreciate the thought, but it doesn't work. Okay? Secondly, there was a 7-vote difference between the two mayoral contestants. Statistically, that's almost insignificant. Now, to say that your victory is insignificant, that's not what I'm implying. But I would have preferred we had a woman on this council. I would have preferred we had a woman's point of view. That's all I'm saying. Not that you guys don't have a good point of view. Not that you're not looking out for the women of this community. Well, I'm sure that you are. But we're not females. We don't think like women. We don't have the battles that they have or the struggles that they have. There's still a struggle in the working world. So I would like to see, as a small portion of this consideration, acknowledge that this was a woman who made a huge, I'll say it like Donald Trump, huge contribution to the country.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for giving me extra time.
Anyone else want to make any comments?
Oh, and one more thing. Sorry if I get too loud. I wear hearing aids and I have no damn idea how loud I am. So I'm trying not to yell at anybody, but you never know what's going to happen. Huh? What'd you say?
With nothing else, then we will adjourn.
Did I do something?
But I missed.
Did I take that out? It's your opportunity.
I already took the dog for a walk, yeah, I already walked.
Whatever the term is.
I did my walking for an old park. Well,
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up is the approval of the agenda.
I'll move for approval of the agenda for March 14, 2023, be approved as submitted.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Agenda is approved. Next is the consent agenda.
I'll move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no.
No.
Consent agenda is approved. Next up, message from the mayor, council, and city manager. Well, let's start with council. Keith, you're first up.
I have nothing this evening.
Steve.
I said everything I had to say. Previous
You sure? You don't have just one more thing?
What do you think? No.
All right, thank you.
Just to follow up from our last meeting when I reported that we would have no spring cleanup 5 days this year due to county landfill
Yes.
shortage. Solid Waste held a special meeting, and the consensus at this point is that we will probably have none at all this year, which was the way that our council had felt like going. Not being for certain that when that new cell is gonna get open, it may be too late in the year to, even try to tackle it anyway, so at this point, there will be none this year.
Has there been any developments on that as far as the progress of the new?
As far as I know, it is in the works, they're working on building it, but I know they actually told us in a letter to be prepared, if it comes down to it, that we may have to find another facility to use temporarily until that one is done, which could end up being another problem altogether, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess.
Hopefully, the responsible parties have
I
considered
think
that and have some
we're
sort of.
already looking into it. Coopersville, of course, is the closest, next best thing, but that's a private, so I don't know, as long as they'll allow us to use it, fine.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's where we stand.
Sean.
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Brown?
Nothing.
Jeff?
One thing under the City of Whitehall Brownfield LDFA, do you think, staff could provide, an emailed, designs of the pocket park and the, promenade?
Absolutely.
I haven't seen it, I was just curious, That's it.
Okay. Scott?
Just a real quick, last Tuesday, I was at Muskegon Community College. The Muskegon Area Labor Management Council, which is an organization of countywide management groups as well as labor unions, put on an annual student mock collective bargaining program. Great facilities, MCC, they've been hosting it for probably 30-some years. We always have the president come in and talk to the students beforehand. It's kind of a light crowd, only 4 schools attended, maybe 100 students. But after doing this for some 25 years, my group went with an impasse. Management was at 6% or 2% pay raise. Union wanted 6%, and neither side was willing to budge. So it's always a great program. I'm not sure how teachers do it. I've got a daughter who teaches. When the students come in, they're not real lively. I'm sure the kids at Montague are always fired up the moment they walk into school. But by the end of the day, sometimes we have to call for a caucus to get the kids away from each other, because it does get quite heated, especially when they know each other. One of my students was actually throwing a couple of borderline insults at one of her friends, and we said, no, stop. So it's always a great facility. Again, MCC does a great job hosting it, and it's, I think in the heyday, we had every school in the county plus Spring Lake, Hart, Shelby, Pentwater, and they had over 700 students. But it just has been kind of dwindling. But it's still a great program. The kids learn a lot.
Our locals are still
Yeah.
there.
Yep. Brian Milliron is one of the history teachers. He unfortunately had to go to it would have been last Thursday, because he had to go to a basketball regional. He's the head coach. So Bobby Oldenburg, the vice principal, filled in, but Whitehall has pretty much always had a group of 8 to 10 students. Always very impressed. They come in business attire. Some of the other schools, there was one girl with the pajamas and the hoodie pulled up, and I don't know. It's just kind of a little bit different atmosphere with some of the other schools. But yeah, Whitehall is always well represented. The kids know the stuff beforehand and are ready the moment they walk in. Others just takes a little prying. So it's a great program. Really have enjoyed being part of that for all these years.
Thank you for giving your time to such a good cause. As far as myself, I've been asked by a number of people, this gnarly heifer on fire, what's going on there?
Problem with their HVAC system.
And that's,
They're open.
want to get the word
Good
out.
burgers.
Good burger.
You're not charbroiled.
No, not charbroiled.
So, that's all. Next up is public comment. Yes, sir. Mr. Sierra, County Commissioner.
Kim Sear. Just a brief update on the Safe Seniors Program. I don't know how many people are aware of that, but it's part of the Age Well Services is provided, and part of the money for the Safe Seniors Program comes from the senior millage money. Certain townships donate some of their money to it, and they also have some through the Age Well organization. So the Safe Seniors identify, advocate, and seek justice for adult victims of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. That's their goal in their program. This is a case report from Muskegon County Safe Seniors Task Force from October 2018, the end of 18 till February of 2023. Total cases investigated were 507 cases. Most of those, the majority of them, were financial exploitation. 76% of the cases was, please, somebody's taking my money. And then physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, and other support services. And through this period, there has been $1.8 million recovered for the seniors in this county via this program. There are 3 deputies that are assigned to it now, and DJ Hilson is also pretty involved in this, in prosecuting these cases. And it's mostly people trying to get their money, and a lot of times it's family. So that's all I have.
Thank you for that update. Anyone else?
Rich Houdeman, 5640 Oak Tree Lane, with Consumers Energy. And I'm here to talk to you a little about Consumers Energy tonight. A couple things we have going in your community. In the next few weeks, you may have been seeing along Lake Street parts of Mears and some tentacles off of Colby and Mears, some blue dots and blue X's. We're going to be coming in and trimming out the circuit. It's called the Hansen circuit. And what we do there is we're just trying to obviously increase our reliability. So we'll trim about 15 feet out from the lines, the top of the lines. And if that's what the blue dots mean. If there is a blue X on a tree, that means we're probably going to be removing that. We do chip everything up and hollow it away if it's 4 inches or under in diameter. If it's more than that, we will cut the wood up into manageable sections. It's the property owner's property. You know, it's their material, they own it. And we'll stack it neatly for them. If folks don't want it, typically a free sign, I'll help it grow legs in a hurry. So that's typically what we find and what we recommend. So there's always some unique circumstances we try to work through, but that's on the whole how that works. We do notify folks with a postcard of the work that's coming up in circuit letters, and I have a lot of communication with Brian and Scott. I want to make sure that they're well aware of what's coming. I'll shift gears real quick. We are also in the middle of a meter upgrade. Verizon has upgraded their cell towers from 3G to 5G, and our smart meters and our customers have 3G meters, and we're in the process of upgrading to 5G. So that we had some supply chain issues, so that's why we weren't able to get all of them updated by the time Verizon had to go to the upgrade on their cell towers. So we're trying really hard to work with our customers now to make sure that they are aware that they may get an estimated bill. We're trying to get out there and get those meters read so they don't have multiple months of estimated bills. But if they do have multiple months, they'll have the equivalent amount to true up, to have the time to pay it back. Let's just say, for instance, that we couldn't read their meter for a couple of months, like say, February, March, and April. They would have 3 months once they got their bill, their true up bill, to pay that back. We want to be as gentle as we can, and it's not convenient for customers, and we're just trying to get these things replaced as quickly as we can. So if people do have a digital read on their meters, they can take a picture of that for a more accurate read and get it to us. But we are communicating with our customers that are impacted through their bills and we send them emails too. So we're trying to communicate the best we can to keep them current and so they understand the situation. I said a lot. I went over. So yeah, go ahead, Mayor. Sorry.
So what's after 5G?
I'm not sure, sir. That's a Verizon technology. We're just trying to keep up with the technology as it evolves. But I will say these original meters have been in the field for 10 years or so. So they have been out there for a while.
Technology moves along pretty fast, so
yeah.
I'm concerned.
We were keeping up. It was just more of a supply chain issue. We have about 8% of our customers that still need to get that upgrade. The rest of them are all set. So they're just kind of scattered throughout that lower peninsula.
I think everybody's dealing with supply chain issues.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Rich, I got a couple questions real quick.
Scott, is this okay?
It's the mayor's meeting, not mine.
Okay. I know, I just don't want to get in trouble. All right.
Stump grinding on private property, you remove a tree from private property, who's responsible for the stump?
It's a property owner's responsibility. We will cut it as low to the ground as we can, Councilman.
Okay, and the other question is, how are we coming on LED streetlights? I'm seeing more and more in the community.
So as they burn out, we'll replace them.
Is that what
Yep. I think we started that back in 2017. The average lifespan of the high pressure sodium, the orange lights, is about 12 years. So, I'm thinking within the next 5 years or so, a majority of the city should be swapped out.
I just noticed, like down Colby, you can tell the color difference, and I was just curious about what your timeline was on those. So, all I had to hear.
No.
That's good. That's all I need to know.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, next up is old business. I don't believe we have any old business. So that would bring up new business. Depot lease. Scott?
Yes, I think this was mentioned already. Not the lease itself. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources technically owns the depot. It's under a land bank. The railroad still has the right to come back and renew all their operations, which will probably never happen. But the DNR actually owns it. The city leases it from the DNR, and we sublease it to the Chamber of Commerce for tourism activities. The lease is expired, and I have spoken with Amy Van Loon, the White Lake Area Chamber of Commerce director, and we're just looking at renewing the lease for 10 years for $1 per year, just the nominal fee. Amy is looking at it. She'll talk to her board about approval. This lease was approved by the state DNR back when it was originally drafted. And I don't know if we drafted it or if the state did, but what we're asking for is council to authorize me to execute the lease in conjunction with the chamber approving it. So they can stay there for another 10 years.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
we have
Do we need a roll call?
Probably for a lease.
Yeah.
Let's have a roll call.
Okay, we'll do it.
Discussion.
Any more discussion? Would you like to discuss that?
I've just got one question,
Yes.
Scott. What is, you say we lease it from the DNR and we in turn lease it to, what do we pay for the lease?
Nothing.
Oh,
And we got a 30-year lease initially, which is, we've got at least another 10 or 15 years left on that.
So, to clear that brush, as I mentioned earlier, that we talked to the DNR, or to?
I'm not sure their property actually goes to the water's edge. We'll
Oh.
look into that. We do have the right to maintain, I mean, we sublease some of that to the chamber. They're responsible for all building maintenance. But we might already have the authority to do some property maintenance, even if it's on DNR property.
Mhm.
So we'll double check that and get back to council.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? No? Roll call, please.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Malali,
Yes.
Connell,
yes.
Sickinga,
Yes.
Heidelberg,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Salter.
Yes. Lease is approved. Next is the amended resolution 2309, fund balance policy.
I move to approve resolution 2309.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Anyone need any clarification? Okay, roll call please.
Malali,
Yes.
Connell,
Yes.
Sickinga,
Yes.
Heidelberg,
Yes.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Salter.
Yes. All right. Next up is resolution 2310, auditing services.
I'll move for approval of auditing services be reestablished as submitted, or approved
I'll second that.
as submitted.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just wanna throw out my opinion on it is, I think, almost 20% increase is a little bit excessive. I know things have gone up in the last few years, but, as far as I'm concerned, I'd still consider 20% excessive. And if they're not willing to come down a little bit in it, in my opinion, we should open it up for bids. That's just my opinion.
Any discussion on this? Okay, roll call please.
Sickinga,
Yes.
Malali,
Yes.
Brown,
No.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Heidelberg,
Yes.
Connell,
Yes.
Salter.
Yes. Next up is public comment. Any public would like to make, this is where the students would step up and give us their name and their class in order to get their paper signed.
Malachi Plunkett, Montague, Mr. Brunson.
Thank you. When we're done, we'll sign your paper.
David Myers, Montague, Mr. Brunson. Ethan Height, Montague, Mr. Brunson.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed our meeting. All right. Anyone have anything else they want to say?